They say the woods behind Ashford, Maine have their own kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you feel like you're being listened to. I never paid much attention to those stories growing up. People in Ashford like to talk about ghosts, witches, old logging accidents. But after what happened last November, I know now the forest hides something far worse. I work as a wildlife photographer for a small nature magazine out of Portland. I've been sent up to Mill Creek Forest, a dense stretch of pines and birch about 6 miles from town, to photograph deer migrations. It was supposed to be a 3-day solo trip. Me, my camera gear, and the silence. I'd done it dozens of times before. I trusted those woods. That was my first mistake. The second day was calm. Cold air, bright sky, nothing unusual. Around dusk, I noticed something odd. The animals were gone. Not just quiet, but gone. No birds, no rustle of squirrels, nothing. The forest was still as glass, and even the wind felt like it had stopped. I set up camp near a clearing I'd scouted earlier, about half a mile from Old Timber Road. My tent faced east, overlooking a slope that dropped into the valley. I remember checking my watch, 5:42 p.m., and noting the sun was setting earlier than expected. By 6, the forest was black. That's when I saw the first flash. It wasn't lightning, too steady. A white glow pulsed through the trees, faint at first, then brighter, like someone was waving a giant floodlight through the forest. It came from deeper in the valley, maybe a few hundred yards away. I grabbed my camera, thinking maybe I'd stumbled on an illegal logging operation or some kind of search crew. When I got closer, the air changed. There was a charge in it, like standing too close to a transformer. The light flickered through the branches again, and that's when I saw it. A circular shape, hovering silently above the treetops. Smooth, metallic, glowing from underneath with shifting bands of white and blue. It wasn't like anything man-made. I knew that immediately. It made no noise, no exhaust, nothing to mark how it moved. I crouched behind a fallen log, my heart hammering. I tried to take a picture, but the camera refused to focus. The autofocus whirred uselessly, and then the screen went black. The air grew heavier. I could hear a low hum now, not from the craft, but from everywhere. Inside my chest, my head, the ground itself. My vision blurred, and then everything lit up. It wasn't a flash, it was immersion. The forest vanished in a blinding wave of white light that swallowed everything. I tried to run, but my body froze, locked in place. I could feel myself rising, weightless, pulled upward without resistance. When the light faded, I wasn't in the forest anymore. The air was thin, metallic, sterile. The room, or whatever it was, curved like the inside of a sphere. I couldn't tell where the walls ended or began. A soft, silver light came from nowhere, casting everything in a cold glow. Then I realized I wasn't alone. Figures moved in the haze. 4, maybe 5 of them. Tall, slender, with elongated heads and grayish skin that shimmered like fog. They had no mouths, no ears, just large black eyes that reflected the light back at me. When one leaned closer, I could feel it, not in sound, but in my thoughts. Do not fear. It wasn't a voice. It was inside me, threading through my mind like static. My body trembled, but I couldn't move. One of them raised a hand, and a beam of pale blue light washed over me. The cold was unbearable. It felt like my blood had turned to ice. Images flashed in my mind. Stars, planets, swirling clouds of dust. Then something closer. Earth, spinning slowly. Then a point of light above it. The figure's hand moved closer to my chest, and a wave of warmth spread through me, like electricity wrapped in fire. The hum grew louder, rising into a single piercing note, and then darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying face down in the snow. The forest was silent, except for the wind. My tent was gone. My camera, tripod, everything, gone. Only my footprints remained, leading in a perfect circle back to where I'd started. It was 7:14 a.m. I had lost over 10 hours. Back in Ashford, I tried to explain what happened. The sheriff said I'd gotten turned around, maybe hit my head. The doctors found no injuries, just elevated radiation levels on my skin that faded after a few days. I didn't tell them about the mark. Right below my collarbone, there was a pattern. 3 small dots, arranged in a triangle, faintly glowing blue beneath the skin. It pulsed sometimes, usually at night, in rhythm with that same low hum I still hear when everything else goes quiet. A week later, hikers found my tent 2 miles from where I'd camped. It was untouched, but the compass and GPS devices inside were fused, literally melted together. I've stopped going into the forest now, but sometimes, from my porch, I can see the edge of Mill Creek Valley, and when the sky is clear and the wind dies down, I catch a faint shimmer just above the tree line, like heat rising off asphalt. I don't take pictures anymore. Some things don't want to be seen, and if you do see them, they'll make sure you don't remember. At least, not all of it. Because whatever came down in those woods that night didn't just leave. It took something with it. And I'm starting to think that something might have been me. You ever notice how silence can feel heavy? Like it's not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else? Something waiting? That's how it felt the night everything changed in Fox Hollow, Alaska, a dot on the map about 40 miles north of Fairbanks. Population, 312. We've got a gas station, a diner that only serves breakfast after sunrise, and a sky so clear you can see the Milky Way like spilled sugar across the dark. It used to make me feel small in a comforting kind of way. Now it just feels like a reminder that someone, something, up there is watching. My name's Evan Mercer, and I've lived in Fox Hollow my whole life. I run a small snowplow and repair service, fixing everything from busted engines to generator lines for cabins along the frozen highway. My days are slow, predictable. Same faces, same bitter coffee, same damn cold. I don't scare easy. You grow up here, you learn to face down wolves, whiteouts, and temperatures that could kill a man in his sleep. But none of that prepares you for the kind of quiet that follows when the world itself stops breathing. It started the night of January 23rd. The temperature had dropped to -28, and the wind had died completely. One of those eerie, still nights when even the trees sound like they're holding their breath. I was driving my pickup along Moose Creek Road, heading back from a call near the ridge. My buddy Cole Benson, a bush pilot who lives out by the old airstrip, had called earlier to say he'd seen strange lights out near the tree line, moving low, too low for planes. We get auroras all the time, but Cole swore this wasn't that. Said they were too perfect, moving in patterns. I told him he'd had one too many bourbons. But as I crested the hill, I saw it. At first, I thought it was a helicopter. 3 lights, evenly spaced, floating above the frozen river about a half-mile out.
They glowed a pale white blue, flickering in and out like underwater lamps. No sound, no rotor wash, just still. I stopped the truck, left the engine idling, and stepped out into the cold. The snow crunched under my boots, loud against the nothing. I could see my breath curling in front of me, slow and thick. That's when I realized something was wrong. There was no sound, not from the truck, not from the wind, not even from my own breathing. Total silence, like the world had been vacuum sealed. Then the lights started moving. They rotated in a slow spiral, widening, the snow below them glowing faintly. I felt the air shift, static crawling along my arms, even through my coat. I reached for my radio to call Cole. Dead. Not even static. My phone? Same thing. Screen black. And then one of the lights broke away from the others. It drifted toward me, gliding through the air like it was swimming. I tried to back up, but my legs wouldn't move. My chest felt tight, like someone was pressing down on it. The closer the light got, the more the silence roared. I could feel the sound of it deep in my bones, a low vibration that made my teeth ache. I don't remember falling. When I came to, I was lying on my back in the middle of the road, snow stuck to my eyelashes. My watch was cracked, its hands frozen at 3:17 a.m. I looked up, and the lights were gone. The only sound was the faint hum of my truck engine, still idling. I checked my phone. 4 missed calls from Cole, the last one at 11:52 p.m. That's almost 4 hours gone. I drove straight to Cole's place, shaking so bad I nearly ran off the road twice. His cabin lights were on and his plane, an old Cessna, was still parked out back. He answered the door looking pale as hell, eyes wide. Before I could say anything, he blurted out, "You saw it too, didn't you?" He told me he'd watched the same lights move from the ridge toward the valley. Said they stopped over Moose Creek for almost a half hour before shooting straight up into the sky like a flare. He said when they disappeared, the power flickered across town. Every radio in Fox Hollow went silent. He tried to call me, but the line cut off after a weird popping sound. We sat in his kitchen for hours, trying to piece it together. I told him about losing time, about waking up in the road. Cole just stared at me. Then he said, "You ever hear about the disappearances back in the 80s? People gone missing between Fox Hollow and the river?" I had. Everyone had. 6 people. 3 locals, 2 truckers, 1 geologist from Fairbanks. Vanished, without a trace. The sheriff back then blamed the weather, but everyone knew better. Search teams found their vehicles still running, their boots in the snow, but no footprints leading away. Just gone. My dad used to tell me never to go out alone past the ridge at night, said the sky people didn't like being watched. I thought he was full of it. The next few days were a blur. The headaches started first, sharp, pulsing pain right behind my eyes. Then the dreams, always the same. A white room, humming softly, and shapes moving in my peripheral vision. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the taste of metal in my mouth. I tried to tell myself it was stress, lack of sleep, but when I looked in the mirror on the 3rd morning, I noticed a mark just behind my ear, a small circular scar I know wasn't there before. I didn't tell anyone, not even Cole. Then things got worse. Lights started appearing again, this time over town. People reported their power cutting out, dogs howling, and flashes in the woods. The local paper called it atmospheric interference. We all knew that was crap. A week later, Cole went missing. His Cessna was found 3 miles south of the airstrip, engine still running, propeller bent from the impact. No sign of him. The cabin door was open, radio fried. They searched the woods for 5 days, found nothing. The sheriff said maybe he wandered off injured, disoriented, but I knew better. The night after the crash, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. to that same silence. My lights flickered once, then died. The air turned heavy, humming faintly. I looked out the window, and there they were. 3 lights, hovering just above the tree line, pulsing in rhythm like they were breathing. My body went cold. I grabbed my jacket, stumbled outside, but when I looked up, I froze. The lights weren't in the distance anymore. They were right above me. Everything went white. When I woke up, it was morning. My clock said 7:19. My clothes were soaked through, my boots muddy. There were footprints leading from my porch to the woods, but not mine. They were small, deep, and too many to count. I don't know what happened during those missing hours. I don't know what they did. But I can't shake the feeling that they didn't just take something, they left something behind. The headaches come in waves now, followed by bursts of static in my ears. Sometimes when it's real quiet, I hear whispers, soft, distant, almost mechanical. 2 nights ago, I found a note taped to my door. No handwriting, just printed words. Do not resist next time. I burned it. But it doesn't matter. I've started losing time again. Little gaps, minutes sometimes, hours. I'll blink and realize I've moved rooms, or I'll wake up outside, frost on my hands. And last night, for the first time since Cole disappeared, the power went out across Fox Hollow. The silence was back. It's almost midnight now. I can feel the pressure in the air again, the hum under the floorboards, the metallic taste in my mouth. My dog won't stop growling at the window. I'm sitting here at the kitchen table with my recorder running just in case. If anyone finds this, if I'm gone by morning, don't believe what they tell you. The lights aren't auroras. The missing people didn't wander off. They came for us in silence, and silence is coming again.
It was a sweltering summer evening in late July in Savannah, Georgia, when everything changed. I still remember every detail vividly, even though part of me wishes I could forget. My name is Lucas Monroe, and this is the story of the night the sky turned red. My best friend Ethan and I had driven out to Maple Ridge, a small, quiet town on the outskirts of Texas, about an hour from Austin. We had planned this camping trip for weeks, looking forward to nothing but the stars above and the freedom of the wild. That evening, we set up our tents in a secluded spot by Deadwood Lake, an eerie, isolated place surrounded by dense trees. We always loved the feeling of being completely disconnected from the world. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the two of us sat by the fire, roasting marshmallows and trading ghost stories. It was typical stuff, laughs, a few scares, but nothing could have prepared us for what was about to happen. "I swear, man," Ethan said, tossing a marshmallow into the flames, "the woods always feel different at night." I nodded, though my eyes were drawn upward toward the clear sky. There was something strange about it, a feeling in the air, thick like the calm before a storm. The stars twinkled in silence, but something about them seemed off. I couldn't quite place it. "You see that?" I asked, pointing to the horizon. Ethan turned to look, squinting. There was a faint glow, a crimson hue slowly bleeding across the sky. "Yeah," he muttered, "but it's probably just the sunset." But it wasn't the sunset. The red grew more intense, brighter, spreading like wildfire until the entire sky was bathed in an unnatural scarlet light. The stars blinked out, one by one, swallowed by the crimson tide. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't normal. "Dude, what the hell is that?" Ethan's voice cracked, fear creeping in.
We stood up, both of us fixated on the sky. That's when we heard it, a low hum, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder by the second. The sound seemed to come from all directions, vibrating in our bones. And then, from the red glow above, a shape began to form. At first it was just a shadow, a large oval object hovering in the distance. But as it drew closer, its details became terrifyingly clear. It was a massive, black craft, sleek and silent, with no windows or lights, nothing to indicate it was man-made. It floated over the lake, casting an eerie reflection on the still water. The humming grew louder, now almost deafening. "Lucas, we need to get out of here," Ethan whispered, his face pale. But neither of us moved. We were frozen, gripped by a fear I'd never felt before. Suddenly, the craft emitted a brilliant flash of red light. I shielded my eyes, but when I looked back, something was descending from the ship. Beams of light shot down, and within them figures began to emerge. At first they were hazy, but as they stepped closer, my stomach turned. They were tall, impossibly tall, with elongated limbs and smooth, featureless faces. Their skin was a sickly gray, and their eyes, huge black orbs, seemed to pierce right through me. The creatures moved silently, gliding toward us. My mind raced, but my legs refused to move. Ethan grabbed my arm, yanking me back toward the car, but it was too late. One of the figures raised its hand, and everything around me froze, as if time had stopped. My vision blurred, and my body felt weightless, as though I was being lifted off the ground. I don't remember what happened next. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in the middle of the woods, far from our campsite. The sky was no longer red. It was dawn, and the first light of morning filtered through the trees. I sat up, disoriented, my head throbbing. Ethan was nowhere in sight. "Ethan!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the forest. I scrambled to my feet, frantically searching for him. My mind was racing. What had happened? Where was he? I found the campsite not far from where I had woken up, but something was wrong. Ethan's tent was gone, and so were his belongings. There was no sign that he had ever been there. The only thing left was the burnt-out fire pit and my gear. I rushed to my car and drove back to town, my heart pounding the entire way. I called Ethan's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I drove to his apartment, but no one had seen him. It was as if he had vanished. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Ethan. The police said he'd probably just run off, but I knew better. I knew what I had seen, even if no one believed me. It's been a year now, and every night I dream of that red sky, of those black, soulless eyes staring down at me. I wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, and I can still hear that low hum echoing in my ears. Whatever happened that night wasn't a dream. Ethan didn't just disappear. They took him. And I know, one day, they'll come back for me too. That was the night the sky turned red. So, let me set the scene for you. My name's Jake Thompson, and this whole messed up thing went down last summer. I was crashing at my buddy Tyler's place, up in this tiny, middle-of-nowhere town called Buckland, Kansas. Population like 500 people and a lot of cornfields. Boring as hell, right? At least, that's what we thought, until that one night. It was mid-July, and we were doing the usual, grabbing a few beers, sitting on his back porch and staring up at the night sky. Out there, you can actually see the stars, clear as day. No city lights, just endless sky. We'd been talking about life, girls, and all the dumb stuff 20-somethings talk about when Tyler brought up aliens. Dude, you think we're alone out here? I mean, look at all those stars, Tyler asked, lazily pointing his beer toward the sky. I shrugged, taking another sip. I don't know, man. If there are aliens, they probably don't give a damn about us. Tyler grinned, leaning back in his chair. Yeah, well, maybe they're watching us right now. We both laughed it off, but the idea of something out there, it stuck with me. I couldn't shake this weird feeling creeping up my spine. Maybe it was just the beer, but the stars seemed too quiet that night. Too still. That's when we heard it. At first, it was faint, like static from an old radio. But it wasn't coming from the house or from our phones. It was just there, floating in the air. A low, crackling sound like whispers carried on the wind. I glanced at Tyler, expecting him to laugh, but he wasn't. He was sitting up straight now, eyes wide. "Do you hear that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded slowly, my heart starting to pound. The sound was getting louder, clearer. Not quite voices, but something. It felt like the air was vibrating around us. "Dude, what the hell?" I muttered, standing up. Tyler didn't answer. He was staring at the sky, and I followed his gaze. And that's when I saw it. One of the stars was moving, like actually moving. Not a plane, not a shooting star. This thing was gliding, slow and steady across the sky. And then it stopped, just hanging there, dead still. The whispers got louder, closer. Almost like they were inside my head. "Jake, that ain't right," Tyler stammered, standing up next to me. I didn't need him to tell me that. My gut was screaming at me to get out of there, but my feet wouldn't move. I was locked in place, staring up at that light. And then, just like that, it blinked out, gone. For a split second, the night was normal again. But before I could even blink, it reappeared. Closer this time. Way closer. I'm talking right above the cornfields, just past the tree line at the edge of Tyler's property. The light was huge now, like a bright, white ball hanging just above the ground, casting this eerie glow over the field. The whispers, they weren't whispers anymore. It sounded like 1,000 voices, overlapping, buzzing inside my skull. I clapped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. They were in my head. "Jake, we gotta go," Tyler shouted, grabbing my arm, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, my eyes locked on that light. And that's when I saw them. Dark shapes, moving, just at the edge of the glow. At first, I thought it was shadows, or maybe animals, but no, these were figures. Tall, slender, with limbs that were too long and heads that didn't look right. They were moving toward us, slowly, like they had all the time in the world. Tyler yanked on my arm again, harder this time, snapping me out of whatever trance I was in. "Jake, now!" That did it. I spun around and bolted for the house, Tyler right behind me. We slammed the door shut, though deep down, I knew that door wasn't going to stop whatever those things were. We ran to the kitchen, ducking behind the counter like that would somehow protect us. For a few minutes, everything went quiet. No buzzing, no whispers, just our heavy breathing and the distant rustle of the wind. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe we'd imagined the whole thing. Then the lights in the house flickered, once, twice, and then everything went dark. "Shit," Tyler whispered, his voice shaky. I peeked over the counter, my heart in my throat. The front window, the one that faced the cornfield, was glowing. That light, the one from the field, was right outside the house now. It was so bright, it flooded the entire living room with this harsh, unnatural glow. And then I saw them again, through the window. The figures. They were closer now, standing at the edge of the porch, just outside. I couldn't make out their faces, if they even had faces, but I could feel them watching us, studying us. "Jake," whispered Tyler, his voice barely audible. "What do we do?" I didn't have an answer. My mind was racing, but there was nothing. No plan, no escape, just the horrible realization that whatever those things were, they weren't here by accident. They came for us, and they weren't leaving empty-handed. The lights outside intensified, filling the room with blinding white. The whispers returned, louder than ever, pounding in my skull. My vision blurred, and the room started to spin. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the door creaking open and the figures stepping inside. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, the sun was rising and the house was silent. Tyler was gone. No sign of him, no sign of a struggle, just gone. I called the police, but of course they didn't believe me. Said Tyler must have taken off, or that maybe we were both drunk. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. Every night since, I hear those whispers. Faint, but they're there. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I swear I can see those figures standing in the distance, just watching, waiting. I don't know why they took Tyler and left me, but I have this feeling, deep down, that they'll be back.
It was supposed to be a chill weekend getaway. Just me, Jake, and Lauren heading up to Whispering Pines. The town itself was tiny, mostly just a speck on the map, nestled deep in the woods of Washington State. Jake had found this old abandoned cabin out there, and we figured, why not? No phones, no distractions, just a break from the chaos. By the time we arrived, the sun had already dipped behind the trees, casting long, creepy shadows over the dirt road. The cabin was, well, let's just say it looked like no one had been there for decades. Dust clung to the windows, and the porch creaked with every step. But we laughed it off. It was part of the adventure, right? Lauren had been acting weird since we got close to the cabin. She kept saying she felt like she'd been there before, but that was impossible. None of us had ever been this far out. She shrugged it off, blaming it on déjà vu, but I saw the unease in her eyes. Something about the place felt off. Night came quick. We built a fire, cracked open some beers, and settled in for what we thought would be a fun night of ghost stories and bad jokes. But then Jake pointed it out. "Dude, what's up with the sky?" I looked up, and that's when I saw it. The stars, usually scattered across the night sky like someone had spilled glitter, were gone. Just this huge, inky black void, like something was covering them. A cold breeze swept through the trees, and I swear, the temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Lauren stood up, looking pale. "Guys, I don't feel right." I was about to ask her what she meant when there was this weird hum, like an engine revving but way off in the distance. The air felt electric, like the kind of tension you get before a storm, but there wasn't a cloud in sight. We all stared at each other, a mix of confusion and panic. Then the lights came. Bright,
blinding, and so dang close I thought the sky was on fire. The hum turned into a loud, pulsating noise, like a heartbeat amplified 1,000 times. The light was so intense I could barely see Jake or Lauren through it. My head spun, my legs buckled, and the next thing I knew, I hit the ground. When I came to, everything was quiet again. The fire was out, the sky was normal, and the stars were back. I was lying on the cold dirt, my body aching like I'd been hit by a truck. Jake was next to me, groaning as he tried to sit up, but Lauren was gone. We searched the cabin, the woods, everywhere, but she had vanished. I tried calling her phone, but there was no signal. Hell, there was never any signal out here. But still, I kept trying. Panic set in fast. Jake was freaking out, saying we needed to leave, that we should go to the cops, but something inside me knew that was pointless. It felt like, I don't know, like she'd just been erased. We drove back to town that night, both of us shaken and silent. The whole way back, there was this nagging feeling in my gut, like something was crawling under my skin. But here's the messed up part. The moment we got back to town, it was like everything reset. Jake, who had been as freaked out as I was, suddenly acted like nothing had happened. I brought up Lauren, and he just stared at me confused. "Who's Lauren?" he asked. Dead serious. I laughed, thinking he was messing with me, but he wasn't. His eyes were blank, like he genuinely didn't remember. I pressed him about the cabin, about the lights, but he looked at me like I'd lost it. Every detail, every terrifying moment, it was all gone for him. And it wasn't just Jake. When I asked around for Lauren, nobody remembered her. Not her family, not her friends, no one. It's like she never existed. I drove back to Whispering Pines a week later. I needed answers, closure, anything. The cabin was still there, abandoned and silent, but this time it felt different. The air was heavier, like the place was holding its breath, waiting for something. I searched everywhere, inside, outside, even the woods, but there was nothing. No sign of Lauren, no trace that she had ever been there with us. It's been months now, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm next. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that hum again, far off in the distance, and when I look up at the sky, I swear the stars flicker out just for a second, like something's still watching. I tried telling people what happened, but nobody believes me. They say I'm crazy, that maybe I've been up in the mountains too long. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. I just don't know how long it'll be before I disappear too.
You never think it'll happen to you, right? I mean, stuff like this is supposed to stay in the movies or those grainy UFO documentaries. The kind where they interview some old guy who swears he saw something in the sky. I used to laugh at that stuff. Used to. That was before that night in Nome, Alaska. Nome's a small place, isolated, cold, and the kind of quiet that gets under your skin. It's so far north that during the winter, it feels like the sun's forgotten about you. Pitch black most of the time, except for the occasional glow from streetlights or the reflection of the moon on the snow. I had been living there for about a year, working for a wildlife survey team. Quiet gig, long hours, but it kept me away from the bustle of everything back home. It was around December when the weird stuff started happening.
At first, it was little things, things you could brush off. Random noises outside, like something scraping against the walls of my cabin. Footprints in the snow that didn't belong to any animal I knew of. But I didn't think much of it. Hell, I blamed it on the wind half the time. Then I met Johanna. She was a bartender at the last stop, the only decent watering hole in town. She had this haunted look in her eyes, the kind of look someone gets when they've seen too much. One night, after a few rounds, she leaned in close and whispered to me, "You ever hear about the disappearances around here?" I laughed it off. Disappearances? What, like Bigfoot snatching people? She didn't smile. Instead, she just stared at me, dead serious. I'm not talking about animals or murderers. I mean something else. Something not human. I wanted to brush it off, call it the ramblings of someone who'd lived in the cold too long, but there was something in her voice, something that made my skin crawl. A week after that conversation, I had my first blackout. I was driving back from a survey site late at night, the sky clear, but the darkness thicker than usual. The road between the mountains was barely lit by my truck's headlights, just endless trees and snow on either side. It was about a half-hour drive to get back to town, but somewhere in the middle of it, everything just disappeared. I can't explain it. One second I'm behind the wheel, the next I'm sitting in my truck, parked in front of my cabin, and it's morning. No memory of driving there, no memory of pulling over, just a total gap, like someone cut a chunk out of my night. At first, I figured it was exhaustion. Long hours, harsh conditions, it's easy to zone out. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. There was this deep, gnawing feeling in my gut that I couldn't shake. The second time it happened, I knew it wasn't just me. I was out by the coastline doing a survey of some migration patterns. It was a crystal clear night, cold enough to make your breath feel like ice in your lungs. I remember looking up, admiring how clear the skies were. You don't get skies like that anywhere else, so close you feel like you could reach out and touch them. But then the stars started moving. At first it was subtle, just a few lights dancing across the sky. I figured it was one of those optical illusions or maybe northern lights starting up. But these lights didn't shimmer like auroras. They were in perfect formation, moving in ways that didn't make sense, faster than any aircraft, shifting direction on a dime. I grabbed my phone to record it, but the second I pulled it out, my body locked up, frozen, completely paralyzed. I couldn't move, couldn't even scream. The lights got closer, brighter, and that's when I heard this low, vibrating hum that rattled in my chest. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before, almost like an engine, but alive. The next thing I knew, I was lying in my cabin again, middle of the day. My body ached, like I'd been thrown off a cliff and survived. My head was pounding, and there was this strange metallic taste in my mouth. I told Nick, one of the guys from the team, about it. He gave me that look, the one you give when you think someone's losing it, but you don't want to say it out loud. "Maybe you've been working too hard, man. Take a few days off," he said. But I knew something had happened, and I knew it wasn't over. The final time. That's when they took me. It was late, 2 a.m., maybe 3. I had been restless, unable to sleep for days, my mind racing with images of those lights. I stepped outside for some air, wrapped up in my thick coat, and the cold hit me like a wall. That's when I saw them again. The lights, just like before, hovering silently over the tree line. This time, though, they didn't stay in the sky. They came down, fast, too fast. I felt the hum again, stronger this time, vibrating through my bones. My body went stiff, and I couldn't run, couldn't even think straight. I remember the light, blinding, white-hot, filling my vision until everything was just gone. When I woke up, I wasn't in Nome anymore. I was lying on this cold metal table surrounded by shadows that moved. I couldn't see them clearly, just these tall, thin shapes with long fingers and eyes that gleamed like they were made of glass. They didn't speak, didn't make a sound, but I could feel them in my head, like they were sifting through my thoughts, searching for something. It felt like hours. Maybe it was. Maybe it was longer. But when I came to, I was back in Nome, in the snow, just outside my cabin. I had no idea how much time had passed. My phone said it was only a few hours, but it felt like days. I never told anyone about that night. Not even Marla. What could I say? Hey, I was abducted by aliens and they were poking around in my brain. But I'm not the only one. People go missing around here all the time, and it's not the weather or the wilderness that's taking them. I hear that hum every now and then, feel that electric buzz in the air. I know they're still out there, watching, waiting. Nome's a quiet town, but don't let that fool you. It hides things. Dark things.
You know how every small town has its own weird, creepy legend? For a place like Lebanon, Kansas, that legend was the old Davis farmhouse, sitting about 2 miles outside of town, abandoned and rotting in the middle of a wheat field. People said they'd see strange lights out there at night, lights that no one could explain. Most folks chucked it up to nothing, just swamp gas or reflections from nearby highways, but I'd lived here my whole life. I know better. My name's Matt Hawkins, and the night I'm about to tell you about still haunts me. It was mid-August, and the air was so thick with humidity you could practically drink it. I'd been staying at my buddy Eddie's place, just outside of town. His place was even closer to the Davis farm. Close enough that sometimes, at night, we'd sit on his porch, drink beer, and try to catch a glimpse of the infamous farmhouse lights. We'd laugh about it, of course, but deep down, I think we both knew something wasn't right about that place. That night, we were bored and a little buzzed. It was just me, Eddie, and his cousin Jenna, who had driven up from Wichita for a few days. The three of us were sitting out on the porch, staring out at the dark fields, when Jenna asked about the farmhouse. "So, what's the deal with that place?" she said, pointing toward the black silhouette of the barn in the distance. "You guys act like it's haunted or something." Eddie smirked, taking a long pull from his beer. "People say they see lights out there at night, aliens or some crap. It's all just a bunch of old stories to scare kids." I nodded, but there was this weird, nagging feeling at the back of my mind. I'd heard those stories for years, lights flashing, people going missing, but I'd never paid much attention. Still, something about Jenna's curiosity and the dark night made me feel uneasy. Then, out of nowhere, the lights appeared. At first, it was just a faint glow, barely visible in the distance. It looked like someone had lit up a huge spotlight behind the farmhouse. I squinted, leaning forward in my chair. "You guys see that?" I asked, my voice tight. Eddie turned to look and froze. "Yeah, what the hell?" The light grew brighter, shifting from a pale yellow to almost blinding white. It wasn't just shining out, it was pulsing, like it had a heartbeat. I stood up, my skin crawling, and Jenna muttered something under her breath. She was scared, and so was I. "We should go check it out," Eddie said, his voice shaky, trying to mask the fear we all felt. "Are you nuts?" I shot back. "It's probably nothing, someone with a high-beam flashlight or something." But deep down, I didn't believe that. Something about that light was wrong, unnatural. It wasn't just coming from the house, it was coming from above it, from the sky. Before I could argue anymore, Eddie had grabbed his keys, and next thing I knew, we were piling into his old pickup, rumbling down the dirt road toward the farmhouse. The light kept getting brighter as we got closer,
And the whole time, my stomach felt like it was twisted in knots. Jenna was dead silent in the back seat, clutching her phone like it was some kind of lifeline. As we pulled up to the old Davis place, I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The house itself looked like something out of a nightmare. Warped wood, broken windows, and an eerie silence that seemed to stretch for miles. But what really scared me was the sky. The light was hovering right above the roof, circular and spinning, with these strange flickering colors that reminded me of oil on water. None of us said a word as we stepped out of the truck, staring up at that thing. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a drone, and it sure as hell wasn't anything natural. It was massive, completely silent, and floating there like it was waiting for something. "We should leave," Jenna whispered, her voice trembling. That was right. Everything in me screamed to get back in that truck and drive as far away as possible, but I couldn't move. It was like I was rooted to the spot, watching in horrified fascination as the light began to lower, slow and deliberate. Then came the noise. It started as a low hum, deep and vibrating through my bones, like the sound power lines make when you're standing too close, only 100 times louder. The air felt charged, electric, and I could barely breathe. The light grew stronger, and suddenly I couldn't look away. I don't know how to explain what happened next. 1 second I was standing there, staring at that damn light, and the next, everything went black. No sound, no light, no nothing. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground next to the truck. My mouth was dry, my head pounding, and the sky above me was pitch black again. Eddie was next to me, groaning as he tried to sit up, his face pale as a ghost. Jenna was nowhere to be found. We searched the entire area, screaming her name, but she was gone. Vanished, just like that. The cops didn't believe us, of course. They said Jenna must have wandered off, that maybe she got lost in the fields or hitched a ride with someone passing through. But I knew the truth. I saw it in Eddie's eyes, too. He'd seen it, and he was just as terrified as I was. That was 2 months ago. Jenna was never found. No trace, no explanation. Just gone. Every night since then, I've dreamed about those lights. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, sure that they're right outside my window waiting for me. The people around here, they don't talk about the farmhouse anymore. Too many weird stories, too many disappearances. They just pretend it's not there. But I know better. I know what's waiting out there in the dark fields beyond the town. The lights, the hum, and whatever's behind them. They're still watching. And I've got a feeling they're not done yet.
You ever get that feeling like you're being watched, even when you know you're alone? I used to laugh that off, figured it was just nerves or too much caffeine. But that was before last winter in Deerfield, Maine. The town's so small it doesn't even show up right on Google Maps. Cold, quiet, surrounded by endless pine and fog. The kind of place where secrets can hide for decades. My name's Eli Turner, and I work as a field technician for a power company that services the whole county. It's a lonely job most days, driving the back roads to check transformers or fix outages after storms. That's how it started. A call about a line down near Moose Hollow, a stretch of forest barely anyone visits in winter. I left around 8 p.m., snow starting to fall, my truck loaded with gear and an old thermos of coffee. The first strange thing I noticed was the static on the radio. Every channel, just white noise. Then my GPS froze, the map blinking like it was trying to tell me something. I figured it was just the storm messing with the signal, but as I pulled into the clearing, I saw it. A faint glow cutting through the trees. At first, I thought it was a campfire, but the light wasn't flickering. It was steady, bluish white, and it seemed to move slightly like it was breathing. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out,
boots crunching on the ice-crusted snow. The air felt charged, almost metallic, and there was this deep hum in the distance, like the low rumble of a generator. When I reached the downed line, I froze. The power pole wasn't broken. It was melted. The wood had warped into a perfect spiral, blackened like glass at the edges. I crouched to get a closer look, but that's when I saw them. Prints in the snow. Not animal, not human. Small, long, and unevenly spaced, like something walking on its fingertips. I backed toward my truck, but the hum grew louder, deep, vibrating through my ribs. The light shifted again, brighter now, coming closer through the trees. I turned off my flashlight, holding my breath. Then everything went dark. I don't mean nighttime dark. I mean total blackness. The kind where your own heartbeat sounds like thunder. My ears popped, and there was a sharp ringing like pressure building all around me. I felt weightless for a moment. Then something cold brushed my neck. I tried to move, but couldn't. My body just wouldn't respond. And then voices. Not out loud, inside my head. Fragmented words layered over each other like static whispering thoughts that weren't mine. I caught glimpses. A bright room, shadows moving, the feeling of being lifted. It was like my mind was being rewound and played back at the same time. When I woke up, I was lying in the snow beside my truck. The engine was still running, headlights cutting into the fog. My watch said 4:17 a.m. 6 hours gone. My radio worked again, but the hum was still faint in the background, buried under the static. The next morning, I filed my report but left out the details. What was I supposed to say? Hey, the aliens melted the power pole. No one would have believed me. But 2 days later, when the company sent another crew to check the area, the pole was gone. Just gone. No debris, no marks, nothing but smooth snow. Now, every night, the same dream hits me. I'm floating, weightless, with lights spinning above me and whispers in a language that sounds like wind through wires. Sometimes, I wake up with my truck keys in my hand and mud on my boots, even though I don't remember leaving the house. Deerfield is quiet again. Folks say the power grid's stable, but I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And sometimes, when I drive those empty back roads, I see that faint blue glow flickering between the trees, like they're still out there, watching, waiting.